Okay, this is a topic on probability. Probability is like chances. So in real life, right, we will usually say, oh, what's my chance of like getting a A1? What's my chance of like failing? So when we talk about chances, it's actually probability. But in the real life, when we talk about probability, we always talk about like, I think there's a 50-50% chance. I'm 100% sure. Okay, so these are the language that we associate when we talk about chances in real life. So in probability, it's more or less the same, except that we will use fraction or decimal instead of percentage. So in probability, we will not be using percentage when we answer it mathematically. Okay, so it's like if I'm 100% sure, that means the probability is 1. So when I'm very 100% sure of something, so the probability is 1. So when the probability is 1, right, it's like I'm very sure, 100% sure that it will happen. Okay, and then if the probability is 0, that means there is no chance that something will happen. Okay, so if it's probability 0.5 or half, that means it's like equal chance. Okay, it's in the middle. You are not so sure. Okay, like both like the chances are like equal. Okay, so the notation, right, you will usually find a notation of P. So this P is something like a shortcut to stands for the word probability. And E is like an event. So E is like an event. So you will always be writing like a P, and then the event is inside here. That means what is the thing that we're talking about. So if you're talking about failing an exam, the probability of failing an exam. Okay, so the probability is dependent on the how many chances are there for that event. So this one is like how many outcome for that event, and this is the total outcome. Okay, so later on we talk more about this. It will be clearer when we have actual situation. So just bear in mind, probability will be between 0 and 1. So any probability, it will be between 0 and 1. 0 is like no chance. 1 is like for sure it will happen. So you cannot be getting a negative number for probability. You also cannot be getting a probability that's more than 1. So mathematically, that doesn't happen. Okay, and then there is also another important idea that you might need to take note. So the probability of events not happening will be we use the total probability to subtract. So we can do something like this. So a very simple example will be, right, what will be the probability of, let's say, me failing an exam. Then I will do a 1 minus probability of pass. Because fail and pass are the opposite of each other. So I can always use the total probability to subtract. Okay. So that is the basic first. So for probability, it is between 0 to 1. It can be written as fraction or decimal, but we just don't do it in percentage. Okay, when we say in percentage. Okay, and no negative numbers. You cannot have more than 1. Okay, then we gotta get used to the idea of what is called a sample space. So typically a sample space, right, will show you all the possible outcome of an event. So for example, if we toss a coin, the coin can either show head or tail. Okay, actually I'm not very sure which one is the head or which one is the tail. Okay, you go and look at the coin. I don't know the idea about which one is the head, which one is the tail. But one side is called head, one side is called tail. So that's called the possible outcome. So when we throw a coin, there are two possible outcomes. So what is the probability of getting a tail? It will be one outcome over a total of two outcomes. Okay, so that's how we decide the sample space. Okay, then when we throw a dice, I'm sure you throwing a dice is like when you play Monopoly or you play some game. So there are six-sided dice. So there will be six outcomes. So these are the six possible outcomes. So when I throw a dice, right, there are six possible outcomes. Okay, so in this case, right, if I do any probability, it will be over a total of six. So for example, if I throw a dice, what's the probability that I can get an even number? So what is the probability that I can get an even number? You look at the outcome. There are three possible even number. So you got three chances of getting the even number. So the probability will be 3 out of 6, which is half. So you always write the actual probability before you reduce it. Okay, so for example, when I go and take a driving test, what is the sample space? The sample space will be either I pass or fail. Okay, where you go and see a football match, what's the sample space? The sample space can be win, lose, or draw. Okay, so every event have different sample space. So you got to look at the context of the event. Okay, so like for example here, for example one, okay, I got a box of 26 letter card. So okay, you got to be reading carefully. So there's 26 letter cards, and each one is an alphabet in uppercase. That means it's like A, B, C, all the way X, Y, Z. So that's the meaning of it. So in this case, there are 26 outcomes. Your sample space will be A to Z. Okay, so you will have 26 possible outcomes. Then we'll take a look at event one first. So event one represent the event where you get a card that represent a vowel. So some of you may not know what's a vowel. So vowel is A, E, I, O, U. Okay, then event two is the event of getting a consonant. Consonant are those that are not vowels. Then that means anything that's not A, E, I, O, U. That will be called a consonant. Okay, so in this case, right, I can answer the question. So how am I going to write the sample space? So the sample space for event one. That will be A, E, I, O, U. So sometimes we write it in curly bracket. Okay, so that is the sample space. So how many total outcome are there? Okay, total outcome for event one. There are 5 of them. Okay, then what is the sample space for event two? So that if I'm going to write out all the sample space for event two, that will be quite long. So this is what I'm going to do. So it will be the non-vowel. So it's like B, C, D, E, F, G, H, okay, X, Y, Z. Okay, then how many are there? Okay, of course, if you're going to be counting, is a lot. So we use the total to subtract the vowel. So there are 26 letters, there are 5 vowels, so there should be 21 outcome. So that's how we use the idea of sample space. It's just a word to tell you that we'll show all the possible outcome. So from the possible outcome, we calculate the relevant probability. So every event has a different sample space. Okay, so number cards. So in this question, right, I think maybe this is easier. You got 20 number cards. So each of them is 1 to 20. So you can draw everything out, or you just do a few to have an idea. Okay, so when they say a card is drawn at random, so the idea of being random is, right, every card has the same probability. Every card has equal chance of being selected. That's called being random. Okay, so that means, right, we got no favoritism. I'm going to favor getting a 10, getting a 6. So there's no favoritism here. So every card has an equal chance of being selected. So how is the chances? What is the chance that I will get a 10? There's only one card that is 10 out of all the 20 cards. So it's just 1 over 20. Okay, and then what is the chance that you will get an even number? Maybe you need to think about how many even numbers are there. So it will be 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So these are the even number. So maybe you want to think this way. Then you start counting. So there are 10. Okay, so you got 10 over 20. There is a half. So you do not need to write out. So this part is optional. You do not need to write out. But when you write out, maybe it's like it will be clearer that, okay, these are the numbers that I wanted. Okay, so for the third part, if I want to know the probability of an odd number, okay, of course I can list out all the odd numbers. Okay, right, I can list out all the odd numbers. And then I do the counting. So in this case, I will get 10 over 20 as well. Or I can also do another method. Because it's either odd or even, I can use 1 minus probability of even. So which is 1 minus half. I can do that as well. Okay. So part 4, what is the probability of having a card that is 0? You realize that there's no 0 card. So there is no chance at all. It will not happen. So the chances is 0. Okay. So okay, subsequently, okay, let me erase this part first. Make sure you take down this part first. Okay. So the next one. Okay, so what is the probability that you can get a card that's greater than 17? So greater than 17 will be 18, 19, 20. So these are the 3 that you are interested in. So there is 3 chance out of 20 chances. Okay, the last one, the probability that it is not a perfect square. So if it's not a perfect square, I'm going to do 1 minus probability of getting a perfect square. That will be easier. So it's easier for me to get a perfect square. So perfect square will be 1, 4, 9, 16. So it will be 1 minus 4 over 20, which is 16 over 20, which is a 4 over 5. So this is the approach that we do for probability. Okay, and then we got probability that involve numbers, letters. Okay, this one I gotta count carefully. Okay, international. So there are 13 letters. So there are the total outcome, it is 13. So when you try to draw a letter from the word, you got 13 outcome. Okay, but out of the 13 outcomes, certain are repeated, of course. So for example, if you look, what is the probability of getting a R? So how many R are there? There's only one R, so it's 1 out of 13. And how many T are there? So, okay, how many T are there? 1 T, 2 T. Okay, that's all. So there will be 2 out of 13. Okay, then what is the probability of a Y? There's no letter Y here, so the probability is 0. Okay, so the more complicated part, it can be a N or E. So let's count how many N and E are there. So let's count 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got 4 chances out of 13 chances. Then let's explore vowel. Vowel will be the one that is A, E, I, O, U, in case you forget. So we gotta count the vowel A, E, I, O, U. Okay, the rest are not vowel. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 out of 13. So from here, my consonant will be quite easy. The rest will be consonant. So probability of consonant are non-vowel. Will be 1 minus probability of vowel. So that will be 6 over 13. So that is a lot of counting that you need to do. So usually sometimes some people, they make careless mistake because of the counting. Okay. So this will be the basic first that you will need to know for probability.